The little amps that could. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Random Distractions home theater update video. In this one, I just wanted to give an update on my Buckeye amps. It's been about 6 months since I got my first one, which was the 3-channel Purifi version, and about 3 months since I got the dented 2-channel Purifi version. I'll go over a couple of different things, so make sure to check the description for timestamps below. So beginning when I first ordered them, both were packaged and shipped really well. The first one did take some time, about 2 months or so, and the second one, since it was already built, it only took about a week. The reason that the first one was delayed so much was due to the shortages that we were having, but from what I understand, the turnaround times have really improved since then. Setting them up was super simple. They just require a power cable, XLR, or in my case XLR to RCA cables, the speaker cables, and I also added trigger cables later on. While Buckeyes does provide a power cable with the order, unfortunately for my application the cable was just a little bit short. Luckily it does have a pretty standard size power socket, so it was easy enough to find a replacement through Amazon. My Anthem MRX 1140 does not have XLR outputs, so I did have to get the XLR to RCA cables. And originally Dylan was recommending the Monoprice brand, which are the ones that I got, but lately there had been some issues with some of the batches, so he no longer recommends them. However, the ones that I got turned out to be good, so I haven't had any issues. And I guess I should mention that the issue that they noticed was that there was a lot of noise being caused by the cable itself, because once the cable was replaced, the problem went away. I also mentioned that I added the trigger cables, and I was using the auto sensing feature, which, you know, it has a little bit of a delay, which all of auto sensing things do, but it seemed to work okay. But the one thing that I was running into trouble with was every now and then when the amp would come on, no sound would come through. And I tried a couple of different things, but finally when I added the trigger cable, that seemed to go away, and I haven't had any issues with that since. However, I don't know if this is something that's pretty common, because it wasn't anything that I've heard any other people experience. So it may just have been an issue with the hardware that I was using that was causing the trouble. The only other thing that I did for the amps, and this is the only other change that you can make on the amp itself, was to change the gain setting. It has low, medium, and high, and I went with the high setting. And this was only to try to match the Emotiva Basics A5, since I was still using that for my Atmos speakers. As reference, the Emotiva Basics A5 has a gain of 29 dB, and for the Buckeye on the high setting, it's 25.5. Now, I don't know how comparable that is to each other, but at that setting, everything seems to be working fine so far. So pairing these amps with my Arundel speakers I think have been great. The 2-channel powers the front left and front right, and the 3-channel powers the center channel and the left and right surround. So a little bit about my speakers. The front left and front right are the Arundel 1961 towers, and they have a power rating of 350 watts RMS at 4 ohms. The center channel is a 1723 Center S THX, and that one has a power rating of 300 watts RMS at 4 ohms. And lastly, for my surrounds, I use the 1961 monitors, and those have a rating of 250 watts RMS at 4 ohms. As for the amps, it doesn't matter if it's the 2-channel or the 3-channel, each channel has the same rating, which in this case at 4 ohms is 425 watts. At that rating, it doesn't matter if it's the towers, the center, or the surrounds, there's more than enough power to help them perform. During long movie or music listening sessions, the amps do get a little bit warm, but not hot. And actually, to be honest, I kind of remember when I was running my Anthem only, without any external amplification, that it seemed to be even hotter. Like I couldn't really put my hand on it for too long because it was very hot. So these amps are very efficient with that power that they use. Which brings me to the sound. I know in the past Class D amplifiers were not considered very good, because even though that they had really great amount of power, sometimes that came along with a lot of noise. But when I was researching into amps, I found that there had been great improvements in the technology, and the modules that Dylan was using in the Buckeye amps were supposed to be really good performers. I did do some testing, and I did hear some noise. However, this was only when my Anthem was cranked all the way to +10, which is the highest that it could go. And also I had to be probably about 6 inches or so from the speaker in order to actually hear that noise. I only ever turn up my Anthem to 0, and at that level the speakers are silent. So when there's a quiet scene in a movie or a song, you know, there's like nothing that's coming from the speakers, unless there's something there. Because some movies, even though they're quiet, they still have a little bit of noise, so you will hear that. But if you're not playing anything at all, then they're dead quiet. Which brings me to another thing about these Class D amp. These modules do not add anything to the sound, they just amplify whatever sound is given to them. For example, I noticed that when I went to the Class D amps, that the Basics A5 was actually adding a little bit of warmness to the sound. So going to these Buckeye amps, there was a little bit more clarity and that warmness was gone. And for me, at least for my listening preference, I actually like that. I like the clarity and that everything just kind of sounded like it was supposed to. This has been great for me when listening to like a complex movie scene or a piece of music, because these amps handle the dynamics really well. I know it's only been 6 months since I got the first one and 3 months since I got the dented one, but overall I think that these amps will last. Dylan at Buckeyes is doing a great job with these, and his customer service is great. When the Purify amps were finally reviewed, they actually did find an issue with them. They were creating a little bit more noise than what usually those modules would do. However, it wasn't really audible to most, and actually, including myself, I couldn't hear anything. But rather than just let it be, Dylan did try to figure out what was going on. And when they finally figured out what it was, they sent out a fix to the customers and of course made sure that going forward, there wasn't any issues. Even after receiving the fix and doing that myself, I really couldn't tell the difference. But it did allow me to look inside and see how everything looked, and I thought, all of the hardware in there looked really great. The connections and everything looked really solid. Of course, I have no idea what I'm looking at, but luckily for me, there's a lot smarter people out there that have looked inside and also feel the same way. I've done a few things to improve the sound of my home theater. The first one being going from an entry-level receiver to the Anthem MRX 1140, which brought, just a lot of activity from all of the channels, which was great. I then upgraded the subwoofers that I was using to SP3000s, dual SP3000s, and that really increased the tactile feel and just the bass response for my entire system. Then when I first dipped my toes into external amplification with the Basics A5, I realized what that additional power could do. When I switched over to the Arundel speakers, I realized that a good set of speakers need a lot of power. And so going with the Buckeyes, they have really come to life. So whether it's watching a movie and feeling like you're surrounded by gunfire and you have huge explosions, or if I'm just sitting on the couch listening to song after song, the pairing of these amps with the rest of my system, the Arundel speakers, the subwoofer, and the Anthem have just really improved the overall sound that's coming from my home theater. So if it isn't obvious, after 6 months of having these amps, I truly love what they've done to my home theater, whether it's watching movies or listening to music. Because of their smaller size, they're a great fit for my limited space, but they still provide more than enough power for my speakers, and my speakers really appreciate and take advantage of that extra performance. Definitely recommend to anybody that's looking for external amplification to at least take a look. Dylan has added additional products on there. Some of them are even more powerful than the one that I'm using, thanks to some, I think, different power supplies that he's using in the modules. I also noticed in the Audio Science review forum, where he usually posts information and stuff, that he may be coming out with something new. And unfortunately, I'm going to be kicking myself in the future if it is what I think it is, because I just recently purchased something that is going to be very similar. But more on that in a different video. Well, that's all that I have for this video. I would definitely appreciate a like on this one, and make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next one drops. If you have any questions about the amps, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see if I can try to answer them. If not, I would definitely say or recommend that you reach out to Dylan at Buckeyes. Like I said, his customer service is great, and he usually replies within a day or two or sooner. So definitely reach out to him, and he's very helpful. But until then, I hope you have a good one.